Sell or sleep outside, my daughter shouted, her voice slicing through the grand marble hallway of my home like a whip. The chandeliers above us glittered in the afternoon sunlight, throwing patterns of gold across the walls. The $7 million mansion I had worked my entire life for, every corner, every brick, every inch of land, echoed with the sharpness of her ultimatum. Her arms were folded across her chest, her manicured nails tapping impatiently against her silk blouse. She looked like a stranger in her own mother's house, and maybe that's exactly what she had become. If you don't sell this place, she continued, her jaw tightening, then I guess you'll just have to sleep outside. Don't expect me to stay here and watch you waste everything. The words stung, though not because of their cruelty. No, what cut me deepest was the hunger in her eyes. That greedy gleam. My daughter Catherine wasn't asking me to sell the home out of practicality. She wasn't worried about taxes, or maintenance, or my comfort. She wanted the money. The cold, hard cash. $7 million, liquid, spendable, all hers if she could bully me into submission. But here's the twist she never saw coming. While she was shouting, while she was demanding, while she was drunk on her imagined inheritance, I had already made plans. I had already secured this mansion's future in a way that would leave her humiliated. And when the truth finally came crashing down, it wouldn't be me left outside. It would be her. So if you're watching this, subscribe, and let me know where you're watching from, because you're about to hear how my own daughter tried to throw me out of my mansion, and how the doors slammed shut on her instead. I stood there in the hallway, leaning lightly on the polished oak banister, watching her. My hair, silver and tied neatly back in a bun, caught the sunlight through the arched windows. My cardigan was old, my skirt plain, but I carried myself with a dignity she could never strip from me. Sleep outside. I repeated softly, almost to myself. In my own home? You heard me, Catherine snapped, her eyes narrowing. This house is too big for you. You're just rattling around in it like a ghost. Meanwhile, I could sell it, invest, and actually do something useful with the money. You should be thanking me for thinking about the future. The future? I said, tilting my head. Or your future? She didn't flinch. Didn't deny it. $7 million, Mother. Do you even understand what that means? Do you know what that could buy? We could live in luxury, travel, expand. But no, you want to sit here in this dusty mausoleum, clinging to your memories. It's pathetic. I felt something deep inside me harden. She called my home, the home her father and I built together, the home where she took her first steps, where she brought home report cards and prom dresses and broken hearts, a mausoleum. Maybe in her eyes it was. Maybe her memories here weren't warm. Maybe they were nothing but stepping stones to the fortune she thought was waiting. I walked past her slowly, my shoes tapping against the marble. You see a mausoleum, I murmured. I see a life. Her laughter was cruel, echoing against the high ceilings. Then bury yourself in it. Just don't expect me to stay. That night, the mansion felt colder. I walked the halls alone, my footsteps echoing. The portraits on the walls, my late husband smiling in his uniform, Catherine as a child in pigtails, my parents on their anniversary, seemed to watch me as I passed. In the library, I sat down at the oak desk, running my hand over the smooth grain. The folder was still there, tucked neatly in the drawer. The deed. The documents. The plan I had already set in motion weeks ago when I first noticed Catherine's restlessness, her sidelong glances at the house, her questions about property values. I had gone to my lawyer quietly, without a word to her. And together, we had secured the mansion's fate. It would never be hers to squander. It was already locked away, its future tied to something larger, something lasting. She thought she was threatening me. She thought she had me cornered. But the truth? The game was already over, and she hadn't even realized she'd lost. The next morning, I found her in the kitchen, pacing with her phone pressed to her ear. Yes, 7 million. At least, she was saying, her voice sharp. The market here is insane right now. We could probably get more. Oh, don't worry about my mother, she'll fold. She's too old to fight me. I stepped into the doorway, and she froze, her face draining of color for just a moment before she snapped her composure back into place. Mother, she said, lowering the phone, forcing a smile. I was just discussing possibilities. Possibilities. I echoed, pouring myself coffee. My hands didn't shake. I wouldn't give her that satisfaction. Or certainties you don't yet own? Her smile vanished. Don't play coy. You know this house is wasted on you. I could make it shine again. I could make it mean something. It already means something, I said softly. It means everything. She slammed her hand on the counter, her nails clacking against the granite. No, it means nothing unless it's sold. Don't you get it? You're in the way. I met her glare evenly. Then move around me. Her mouth fell open, but no words came. I left her standing there, furious, her phone clutched in her hand. Over the following days, her cruelty escalated. She began stripping my home of its soul piece by piece, as though to force me out by sheer will. Family portraits vanished from the walls, replaced by empty hooks. My favorite armchair disappeared into storage. Boxes appeared in the hall, filled with my belongings, dresses, photo albums, even my late husband's military medals. This house is changing, she told me smugly when I confronted her. You can stay if you want, but only until it sells. Then you'll have no choice but to leave. I looked at the box in my hands, a collection of love letters my husband had written to me when he was deployed overseas. My throat tightened, but I swallowed the pain. You're right, I said. This house is changing. And I left her standing there, smirking, never realizing I wasn't agreeing with her. I was promising her something else entirely. One evening, the neighbors stopped by. A couple I'd known for 20 years, curious after seeing Catherine directing movers in and out of the driveway. She says you're selling? They asked gently, concern etched in their faces. I smiled faintly, sipping my tea. That's what she says. Catherine, overhearing, beamed. Yes, we'll be listing it soon. Finally putting this property to good use. The couple looked at me, uneasy. I didn't answer. I simply nodded, letting Catherine bask in her imagined triumph. Because the louder she crowed, the harder her fall would be. That night, I sat again at my desk, the folder open in front of me. I read every line of the agreement, every clause, every seal. The mansion wasn't hers. It wasn't even mine, in the way she believed. Its future was already written. I closed the folder gently, my fingers lingering on the notary's stamp. She thinks she's throwing me out, I whispered to the empty room. But when the doors close, it won't be me left outside. The house groaned softly in the night, as though agreeing. The walls that had witnessed my life seemed to hum with patience, waiting for the moment truth would thunder through them. And when it did, Catherine would finally learn that greed has a price. The morning after Catherine's outburst, I found a stack of glossy real estate brochures on the kitchen counter. Bold headlines shouted things like luxury market boom and 7 figures for your estate. The pages glittered with photos of modern glass mansions, infinity pools, and rooftop patios. Beside the stack was her coffee mug, lipstick stained, half full, abandoned like everything else she touched. I lifted the brochures and flipped through them slowly. Page after page of other people's castles, soulless glass boxes with no history, no heart. She thought my home belonged in their ranks, a commodity, a number, a check waiting to be cashed. I laid the stack back down, neat and centered. When I turned, she was leaning in the doorway, her arms folded, her smirk wide. You like those? She asked. They're pretty, I admitted. But pretty isn't the same as valuable. Pretty sells, she said sharply. And this house will sell fast. I've already spoken to 2 agents. They're eager. My hands tightened around the edge of the counter. Without my consent? She laughed, a cruel, lilting sound. What's consent when you're just one old woman standing in the way of progress? I said nothing. Silence was my blade. Later that day, I walked the mansion's halls alone. She thought the marble floors and chandeliers were just features to list, but to me, they were memories frozen in time. My husband and I had saved every penny to build this house. We had dreamed aloud on blueprints spread across our old kitchen table. I had stood in these halls when Catherine was a baby, her cries echoing off fresh plaster. Now she wanted to trade it for a pile of bills that would burn faster than she could spend them. In the sitting room, the curtains had been replaced, thick velvet ones she ordered without asking me. The portrait of my husband that once hung over the fireplace was leaning against the wall, face down. I lifted it gently, brushing dust from the frame. My reflection stared back from the glass, tired eyes, silver bun, cardigan pulled tight, but behind it, his smile glowed. "She thinks she's won," I whispered to him. "But we're not finished yet." 2 nights later, she brought a realtor to dinner. A slick young man in a tailored gray suit, his hair gelled back, his smile too polished to be sincere. He praised the vaulted ceilings, the sprawling staircase, the imported tile. "This will move fast," he said confidently. "7 million is conservative. We could push higher." I sat at the end of the dining table, my soup untouched, my eyes on Catherine. She glowed with pride, drinking in his words. "See, mother," she said sweetly, though her eyes were sharp. "Even the professionals agree. This house is wasted on you alone." The realtor chuckled awkwardly, clearly sensing the tension but choosing his paycheck over tact. I folded my napkin neatly. A house is not wasted when it's lived in. It's wasted when it's sold to someone who doesn't value it. His smile faltered. Catherine's eyes flashed. "We'll be in touch," she snapped at him, rising from the table. "Thank you for your time." He gathered his things quickly and left, leaving only the sound of his expensive shoes fading in the hall. When the door shut, Catherine rounded on me. "Why must you embarrass me? Why must you always fight?" "Because it's my house," I said softly. "And you don't own it." Her fists clenched at her sides. "Not yet." In the days that followed, her behavior worsened. She began hosting planning sessions in the mansion with her friends, young women in designer clothes who lounged in my parlor, sipping wine and discussing what the house would look like after the sale. "I'll buy a penthouse in Miami," one friend giggled. "You could finally get that Tesla," another chimed. Catherine laughed with them, tossing her blonde hair over her shoulder. "Oh, I'll do more than that. With the money from this place, I'll build something 10 times grander. This is just the beginning." I walked past them quietly, carrying a tray of tea I knew they wouldn't drink. They didn't stop talking. To them, I was already invisible. But invisibility has its power. They couldn't see me watching, couldn't hear me planning, couldn't feel the storm I was holding back. One afternoon, my neighbor, Mrs. Price, stopped me by the mailbox. She was a kind woman in her 80s, her cane steady on the pavement. "Catherine's been saying you're moving," she said cautiously. "Is it true?" "No," I said simply. Her brow furrowed. "She's been telling everyone at church you're selling. That you've already agreed." I smiled faintly. "Then she's selling lies." Mrs. Price patted my arm gently. "You deserve better than this." "I'll get it," I promised softly. That evening, I overheard Catherine speaking to my son on the phone. Her voice carried through the vents, sharp and insistent. "She's being stubborn. But once we get the paperwork in motion, she can't stop us. We'll push it through. She's too weak to fight." My heart clenched. My own son. My boy, caught in her web. I wanted to believe he was reluctant, that his silence meant discomfort, not agreement. But silence is its own betrayal. I closed my bedroom door quietly and locked it. At my desk, I opened the folder once again, tracing the lawyer's seal with my fingers. The plan was still intact. The mansion's fate was already sealed, and Catherine wasn't part of it. All I had to do now was wait. The breaking point came at Sunday dinner. Catherine stood at the head of the table, raising her glass. "To new beginnings," she declared, smiling broadly. "This house won't be ours much longer. We're stepping into something better." Murmurs spread among the family, confusion flashing across faces. My nephew glanced at me, eyebrows raised. My sister-in-law shifted uncomfortably in her chair. I set down my fork, folded my hands, and spoke evenly. "You speak as though the decision has been made." "It has," Catherine shot back. "Everyone should know. The mansion is going on the market. $7 million, minimum. Soon, we'll all be celebrating." "Will we?" I asked softly. She faltered, just for a moment, then forced her smile wider. "Of course. You'll thank me." But around the table, doubt had taken root. Whispers passed from mouth to ear. Her arrogance, so carefully polished, was beginning to tarnish under the weight of her own boasting. I watched, calm and silent, as she dug her own grave with every word. That night, she cornered me in the hallway, her eyes blazing. "You made me look like a fool," she hissed. "I didn't say a word," I replied calmly. "Exactly," she spat. "You just sat there, letting them doubt me. You love making me look bad." I stepped closer, my voice low. "You do that yourself." Her face twisted, her confidence cracking. But before she could retort, I turned and walked away, my cardigan brushing against the wall as I left her standing in her fury. By the end of the week, whispers had grown louder. Cousins called me, neighbors stopped me, church members pulled me aside. "Is it true you're selling?" they asked. Each time, I smiled faintly and shook my head. "Not yet." Behind me, Catherine fumed. The walls of her fantasy were crumbling, but she didn't know why. She couldn't see that the foundation had already been pulled from under her. Because the day was coming, the lawyer had already called. A family meeting had been set. The papers were ready. And when the truth finally came, Catherine wouldn't just lose the house. She would lose her pride. The sound of hammering woke me. Not gentle taps, but sharp, purposeful thuds echoing through the mansion's halls. I rose from my bed, pulled my cardigan tight, and followed the noise. When I reached the sitting room, my heart sank. 2 men in work overalls were measuring the walls, scribbling notes on clipboards. One of them tapped the fireplace, nodding approvingly. "What is this?" I asked, my voice carrying through the room. Catherine turned, her blonde hair falling perfectly over her shoulder. She wore tailored slacks and a crisp blouse, her smile smug. "Renovations. We're opening the space to make it more modern. Buyers want open floor plans these days." "Buyers?" I echoed, the word tasting bitter. "Yes," she said lightly. "Potential buyers. This house is going to move fast. We need to make it appealing." I looked at the workers, then back at her. "Without my permission?" She tilted her head. "You've had your time, Mother. This is the future. My future." The workers avoided my eyes, pretending to focus on their measurements. I walked slowly across the room, my shoes silent on the polished floor. I touched the fireplace, the one my husband had built brick by brick with his own hands. "This house doesn't belong to you," I whispered. Her smile sharpened. "It will." That afternoon, I found my belongings once again packed into boxes. Not just clothes this time, heirlooms. My mother's china. My father's pocket watch. The quilt my grandmother had sewn by hand. All of it stacked neatly in the hallway, labeled with black marker, storage. I stood frozen, my chest tightening. Catherine appeared behind me, sipping from a crystal glass of wine. "You'll thank me," she said casually. "Less clutter. Buyers want a blank canvas." I turned slowly, my voice calm but cold. "Buyers want a home. And this isn't for sale." Her laugh rang sharp. "You can keep saying that, but soon you won't have a choice." That evening, my son came home. He looked tired, his shoulders slumped, his tie loose. I waited in the kitchen, the will tucked safely away in my locked drawer upstairs. "Your wife is tearing apart this house," I said quietly as he poured himself a drink. He sighed, staring into the glass. "She just wants what's best for us." "For you?" I asked. "Or for her?" He didn't answer. He just took a long sip and left the kitchen without meeting my eyes. His silence was louder than any agreement. Days later, Catherine hosted another planning session. This time, she invited a designer. A tall woman with a portfolio of glossy renderings spread across my dining table. "Knock down this wall," the designer said confidently, pointing. "Open it up for a grand entertaining space. Buyers love that." Catherine nodded eagerly. "Perfect. And the staircase? Can we modernize it?" I stood at the doorway, my hands gripping the frame. The designer glanced at me politely. "And you are?" "This is my house," I said evenly. The designer blinked, startled. Catherine rolled her eyes. "Ignore her. She's sentimental. Doesn't understand business." I stepped into the room slowly, my cardigan brushing against my skirt. "No, I understand very well. I understand that greed destroys homes faster than termites." The designer flushed, gathering her papers. "Perhaps I should come back another time." Catherine glared at me, fury burning in her eyes. The family began to notice. At a cousin's birthday gathering, whispers followed Catherine wherever she went. She says the house is already sold, one cousin murmured to another. Strange. Margaret doesn't look like she's moving, another replied. Catherine raised her glass, smiling too brightly. Oh, it's only a matter of time. We're upgrading, finally moving into the life we deserve. Across the table, I sat quietly, sipping my tea. My silence made them curious. My calm made them doubt her. And doubt, I knew, was a seed that grows quickly. One evening, I found her in my bedroom. She was rifling through my desk drawers, her manicured fingers flipping through papers. What are you doing? I demanded, my voice sharper than usual. She turned, unashamed. Looking for the deed. If you won't sign, maybe I can find what I need myself. I walked forward slowly, my cane tapping against the floor. I closed the drawer firmly, locking it. You won't find it here. Her eyes narrowed. Then where? I smiled faintly. That's not for you to know. For the first time, uncertainty flickered in her gaze. Her arrogance peaked at church that Sunday. She strutted through the doors, pearls gleaming, her voice carrying as she spoke to anyone who'd listen. Yes, Mother's selling the mansion, she announced. 7 million at least. We'll finally have what we deserve. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the congregation. Some congratulated her, others looked shocked. I stood quietly at the back, my hands folded over my Bible. When a kind woman asked me gently, "Is it true, Margaret?" I only smiled and said, "Not yet." The doubt grew louder. Catherine's triumph began to taste hollow even to herself. That night, she confronted me in the hallway, her face flushed with anger. "Why do you keep undermining me?" she hissed. "Why do you make me look like a liar?" "You don't need my help for that," I replied softly. Her hand twitched, as though she might strike me. But she didn't. She spun on her heel and stormed away, her footsteps echoing down the corridor. I leaned against the wall, my heart steady. The storm was almost here. A week later, the letter arrived. An official envelope from my lawyer, addressed to me but copied to Catherine. She tore it open eagerly, her eyes devouring the words. Then she grinned, waving the paper at me. "Finally," she crowed. "The lawyers called a family meeting. This is it, Mother. The end of your reign." I took the letter gently, my eyes scanning the lines I already knew by heart. My lawyer had been thorough. The meeting was scheduled. The papers were ready. I handed it back to her calmly. "Yes," I said softly. "This is the end." She mistook my words for surrender. She laughed, clapping her hands together. But I knew better. It wasn't my end that was coming. It was hers. The day Catherine began stripping the mansion bare, I knew she believed victory was hers. I walked into the living room that morning and froze. The walls were naked. The photographs, the wedding portrait of her father and me, Catherine's graduation photo, her first piano recital, were gone. The mantel was bare, no trace of the framed smiles that once guarded the room. Even the antique clock my parents gifted us was missing. I found them later, stacked carelessly in the garage, leaning against cardboard boxes labeled "Donate." "What have you done?" I asked, my voice trembling not with fear but with fury. Catherine turned, her silk blouse pristine, her blonde hair gleaming in the light. She sipped from a glass of orange juice as though nothing were amiss. "Decluttering. Buyers don't want someone else's past staring at them. They want to imagine their own future here." "These aren't clutter," I said softly. "They're our lives." She shrugged. "Your life. Not mine." Her words landed like a stone in my chest. My daughter, erasing her own history for the sake of a sale she could never make. That evening, I sat in the library, the fire crackling low, the room too large and too quiet. My son came in, loosening his tie, his eyes shadowed with fatigue. "She's going too far," I told him. He hesitated. "She just wants." "She wants money," I interrupted, my voice sharper than I intended. "And you're letting her destroy everything your father built." He rubbed the back of his neck, unable to meet my eyes. "Maybe it's easier this way. Maybe you should let go." The betrayal in his words burned hotter than the fire beside me. I turned my face away, unwilling to let him see the tears in my eyes. "You think letting go is easy?" I whispered. "You think erasing a lifetime happens with a shrug?" He didn't answer. He left me there, the silence closing in. A week later, Catherine hosted what she called a celebration. She invited friends, colleagues, even a realtor, filling the mansion with strangers. Laughter and the clinking of glasses echoed through the halls. I watched from the staircase as she stood in the center of the foyer, her voice carrying proudly. "Soon this place will be on the market," she announced. 7 million, maybe more. It's just too big for one old woman. I'm making sure it finally reaches its potential." The guests applauded politely, though unease flickered in a few eyes. I caught one neighbor whispering, "Does her mother know?" I descended the stairs slowly, my cardigan wrapped tightly around me. The room grew quieter as I reached the bottom step. "This house is not for sale," I said calmly. The air froze. All eyes turned to me. Catherine laughed too loudly, waving her hand. "Don't mind her. She's just adjusting to change." But the whispers had already started. Seeds of doubt sprouted in the crowd. Her performance cracked under the weight of truth. I smiled faintly and walked past her, leaving her fuming in front of her guests. The next morning, she cornered me in the hallway, her voice a hiss. "You humiliated me." "You humiliated yourself," I replied. Her eyes blazed. "You're destroying everything I've worked for." "What have you worked for?" I asked evenly. "A sale that isn't yours to make?" For the first time, her confidence faltered. Her lips trembled before she masked it with fury. "This house is already mine," she spat. "You just don't know it yet." I leaned closer, my silver hair glinting in the morning light. "Then you don't know me at all." Days passed, and whispers spread faster than wildfire. Neighbors asked questions. Relatives called. "Is it true the house is being sold?" they asked. I always answered the same, "Not yet." But Catherine grew desperate. She stormed into my room one night, her heels clicking furiously against the hardwood. "Stop telling people lies," she demanded. "You're confusing everyone." I closed my book and looked up at her. "The only liar here is you." Her face twisted, and for a moment, I saw fear flicker in her eyes. But it was gone as quickly as it came. "You'll regret this," she whispered, slamming the door behind her. The letter from the lawyer arrived 2 days later. Official, crisp, carrying the weight of truth. Catherine tore it open eagerly at the kitchen counter, her eyes widening as she read. Then she laughed, clapping her hands. "It's happening," she crowed. "A family meeting. Finally, the papers will be read, and everyone will see. This is the end for you, Mother." I took the letter from her gently, scanning the lines I already knew. My lawyer had prepared everything. The date was set. The family would gather. "Yes," I said softly. "This is the end." She mistook my calm for surrender. Her laughter rang through the house, triumphant and cruel. But I wasn't surrendering. I was waiting. The night before the meeting, I sat in my bedroom, the documents spread across my desk. The notary's seal gleamed under the lamplight, the words clear, final, unshakable. I traced the signatures with my fingertip, my heart steady. "This is for you," I whispered to the memory of my husband. "For what we built. For the grandchildren. For everyone who comes after." The house creaked around me, as though it were listening. The walls seemed to hum with anticipation. Tomorrow, the truth would finally be spoken. And Catherine's empire of arrogance would crumble. The morning of the meeting, the mansion buzzed with her excitement. She dressed the children in their finest clothes, as though preparing them for a coronation. She wore a tailored navy dress, pearls gleaming at her throat, her smile wide and false. "This is history," she told them proudly. "Today we claim what's ours." I sat on the porch swing, my cardigan buttoned neatly, my silver bun pinned in place. The dogs rested at my feet, their warm bodies pressing against me. I looked like the frail woman she believed I was, but inside, I was steel. When the car arrived, she didn't even let me sit in front. "Back seat, Mother," she said breezily. "You'll have plenty of time to rest once this is over." I climbed into the back quietly, watching her reflection in the rearview mirror. She hummed as she drove, smug, her hand resting on her husband's knee. She thought she was heading to her victory. But what awaited her was a reckoning. The law office smelled faintly of polished wood and old paper. Leather chairs creaked as family members settled around the long mahogany table. The blinds were half-drawn, slicing sunlight into pale ribbons across the carpet. I entered last, leaning slightly on my cane, though I didn't need it. My silver hair was pinned neatly in its bun, my cardigan buttoned, my long skirt brushing softly against the floor. I moved slowly, deliberately, every step steady. Catherine was already there. She sat near the center of the table, her navy dress crisp, pearls gleaming at her throat. Her blonde hair shimmered under the light, her lipstick painted in glossy confidence. She looked like royalty, like someone awaiting a crown. Her husband sat beside her, silent, his tie too tight around his neck. Their children fidgeted in their seats, dressed in starched clothes, their eyes darting nervously around the unfamiliar room. The rest of the family filled the seats: cousins, uncles, aunts, neighbors who had somehow heard and wanted to witness the spectacle. Their whispers hummed like bees in the stillness. At the head of the table, Mr. Lawson, my lawyer, adjusted his glasses and cleared his throat. A thick folder rested before him, its weight more than paper. It was the truth, bound and sealed, waiting to be unleashed. "Thank you for coming," he began, his voice steady. "We are here to review the estate plan and last will of Margaret Hale." Catherine's smile spread wide, her hands folding neatly in her lap. "As per Mrs. Hale's instructions," Mr. Lawson continued, "this document was drafted and notarized 1 year ago. It reflects her final decisions regarding the distribution of her estate, including the residence valued at $7 million. Catherine leaned forward eagerly, her eyes gleaming. I watched her carefully. Every gleam, every twitch of her lips, every hungry glance at the folder, she thought she was about to feast. Mr. Lawson flipped a page, his voice firm. "The residence, including the home, land, and all attached property, shall not be sold under any circumstances until the designated heirs come of age. Said heirs are Mrs. Hale's grandchildren, to whom the property is entrusted in full." The words dropped like stones in a pond. Silence followed, rippling outward in shock. Catherine blinked. Her smile faltered. "What did you just say?" "The mansion," Lawson repeated calmly, "is placed in trust for the grandchildren. Its sale, management, and all decisions regarding it will remain out of the control of any spouse or non-blood relative." Whispers erupted around the table. Family members shifted, murmuring. The grandchildren stared at each other in wide-eyed confusion. Catherine shot to her feet, her chair screeching back. "That's impossible. I'm her daughter. This house should be mine." Lawson met her fury with composure. "It is not. Your name does not appear as a beneficiary." Gasps circled the room. Someone muttered, "She told us it was hers already." My son's face turned pale, his hands tightening on the armrests of his chair. Catherine slammed her palms on the table, her voice shrill. "You can't do this. She can't do this. She's not thinking straight, she's old, confused, manipulated." I rose slowly, my hands steady on the cane. My voice was calm, but it cut through the chaos. "I am not confused. I am not manipulated. I am your mother, Catherine. And I see you clearly." The room quieted. Every eye turned toward me. "You called this house wasted," I continued. "You told me to sell it. You told me to sleep outside, like a dog in the yard. You stripped its walls, packed its memories, and called it clutter. You thought greed would carry you to the top. But greed doesn't build. It only destroys." Catherine's lips trembled. "I was protecting our future." "No," I said firmly. "You were protecting your appetite. And now you'll see what appetite earns: nothing." Lawson cleared his throat again, continuing over the tension. "In addition to the residence, all accounts, savings, and investments are likewise designated directly to the grandchildren. Jewelry, heirlooms, and items of sentimental value are listed by name, all remaining in blood lineage. The estate is structured to protect assets from misuse, sale, or mismanagement." Catherine swayed, gripping the table. Her face flushed crimson, her chest heaving. "This is fraud," she screamed. "She tricked you all. She can't cut me out. I'm her only daughter." Lawson set the folder down with a firm hand. Mrs. Hale's wishes are clear, legal, and binding. You have no claim. The family murmured louder. Cousins exchanged glances. Neighbors whispered, shaking their heads. One aunt spoke softly but firmly. All this time you bragged, Catherine. You said it was yours. You lied to us. The words stung more than mine. Her face crumpled, humiliation blooming across her features. She turned on her husband, grabbing his arm. Say something. Do something. He swallowed hard, his eyes darting to me, then back to her. It's for the kids. Maybe this is right. Catherine's jaw dropped. You spineless coward. Gasps echoed again. The children shifted uncomfortably, their wide eyes brimming with confusion and fear. The meeting closed with Lawson's firm declaration: the will stands as it is written. The mansion, the accounts, the heirlooms, all protected, all destined for the grandchildren. This matter is settled. He closed the folder with a decisive snap. Catherine's world shattered with that sound. She staggered back from the table, her hands trembling. Her pearl necklace glinted as she clutched her throat, gasping for air that wouldn't come. You'll regret this, she hissed at me. All of you. I'll find a way. I'll take what's mine. I straightened my back, my voice steady. You already had what was yours, Catherine. Love. Family. A home. But you threw it away. Tears burned in my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. My voice was clear, strong, final. Now the doors of this house are closed to you. She stormed out, her heels clattering angrily against the floor, her fury echoing down the corridor. Family members parted silently, watching as her once proud stride collapsed into a stumble. She shoved open the doors and vanished into the bright daylight, leaving whispers and pity behind her. I sat back down, my hands folded neatly in my lap. The weight lifted from my chest, not joy, but justice. My son lingered behind, shame written across his face. Mom, he began. I raised a hand. Save your words. They belong to your children now. Protect them better than you protected me. He lowered his eyes, silent. That evening, I returned to my mansion. The walls still bore scars from Catherine's attempts to erase me, empty hooks where photographs once hung, boxes stacked carelessly in corners. But the house was mine again, not in possession, but in spirit. I rehung the portrait of my husband above the fireplace. I placed the antique clock back on the mantel. Slowly, the soul of the house returned, piece by piece. On the porch swing, I sat with the dogs at my feet, the sunset painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. My silver hair glowed in the fading light, my cardigan soft around my shoulders. The doors behind me stood tall and proud, their wood gleaming. They had closed on Catherine that morning, not physically, but symbolically. And they would remain closed to her. She had chosen greed over love, arrogance over humility. And in the end, she had lost everything. I had not shouted. I had not fought with fists. I had simply waited, patient and steady, until the truth spoke for me. So if you're watching this, remember, betrayal may wound, but dignity heals. Greed may roar, but patience prevails. And sometimes, the sweetest revenge is not revenge at all, it is simply closing the door on those who would throw you outside. Subscribe, hit the bell, and tell me where you're watching from. Because maybe you've been told to sell, to give up, to sleep outside. But hold steady, because one day, the doors will slam shut on your betrayers too.